Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's program, Books on the Chopping Block with City Lit Theater. We're thrilled to have you join us here in person at the DePaul University Library and online on Zoom. My name is Jill King. I'm a librarian here at Richardson Library, and I've been involved in our Banned Books Week programming all week long. Banned Books Week is all about celebrating the freedom to read and highlighting the dangers of censorship. And this is proving to be more important than ever. Over the past year, the American Libraries Association recorded a huge surge in book challenges and efforts to remove or restrict access to books in schools and libraries. And they're finding that many of these challenges are coming from political organizations that are explicitly targeting books with LGBTQ characters and storylines and books featuring characters of color. So you might be thinking about certain parts of the country where you're assuming this is all happening, and you are definitely right about that, but it's also happening right here in our area as well. Just as I came in this morning on my way to work, I heard WBEZ reporting on efforts to remove 2 LGBTQ books from high school library in Barrington in the northwest suburbs. Just yesterday, the school board there voted very narrowly to keep This Book is Gay and Flamer by Mike Caranto on the shelves. So if you'd like to learn more about Banned Books Week and what you can do to advocate for intellectual freedom, you can stop by our information table in the back. We have some great materials there and also some fun swag that you can take home with you. And our new library exhibit, Books Unite Us, Censorship Divides Us, is also just being installed, and you can stop by and take a look right near the library entrance. We welcome you to explore those materials and learn more about the connection between book challenges and social justice. Also at the back table, we have a sign up with a link to share any experiences that you might have with book challenges or just special books that have really made a difference in your lives. If you'd like to share your experience with us, we've been putting out some of those quotes and experiences from the DePaul community all week during Banned Books Week, and you can be entered for a second time in the raffle that we're going to be doing. So 2 chances for the raffle. But first, we have a really exciting program for you today. I'm really pleased to welcome City Lit Theater, and I will let them introduce Books on the Chopping Block. We will have time for Q&A with City Lit following the performance. So hang on to your questions here in person in the room, and if you're on Zoom, you can enter questions into the chat to address later. All right, thanks. Welcome, City Lit.
Thank you. And thank all of you here in the library for joining us, and everyone out there on Zoom for joining us to celebrate our freedom to read. We are from City Lit, a theater company on the north side of Chicago that specializes in staged adaptations of literary works. So today we're going to be reading a series of excerpts taken from the American Library Association's top 10 list of last year, 2021's most frequently challenged books. So a challenge is defined as a formal written complaint filed with a library or school requesting that materials be removed because of their content or appropriateness.
Book number 10, Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out, is a book of detailed interviews by author and photographer Susan Kuplin. The book has won multiple awards and has also been banned and challenged for LGBTQIA+ content and because it was considered to be sexually explicit.
During Jesse's early high school years, he didn't know what the word transgender meant. He was only questioning his sexual orientation. He thought, hey, if you like women and you're a woman, then you're a lesbian. He didn't know about gender diversity because he was young. In Thailand, they called people like me tomboy, which is basically a butch lesbian. I guess people had questions about me. I was questioning me too. I wasn't sure what I was, so I tried to make people think I was straight. I tried to be a big girly girl just to fit in. No matter how pretty I looked, I felt uncomfortable. I felt like I wasn't right in a physical sense. I had a problem with the clique of girls I was in. They were the prettiest girls in school, the conceited clique. They tried to push me. You should wear this. You should wear that. It wasn't me. I had long hair and I was trying hard to act like a girl, and when I told them I wanted to cut my hair, they wanted to know why. You're not my mom, I said. Why are you asking me this? At one point they asked, are you gay? I said I didn't know, and they started saying things that were kind of mean. Not kind of, it was mean. I can't believe you're that kind of person, my close friend said, glaring at me like I was from another planet. I said, say you're my friend. Why can't you accept me for who I am? How can you say those things to me? How could I call these people my closest friends when they didn't even know who I was? That's not the definition of a friend. A friend is someone you can share things with. You can be yourself around. If you had a crush on someone, you can tell your friends. I couldn't do that with these girls. Finally, I said goodbye to that clique, and I ate lunch alone. I was hurt. I was kind of lonely. During that time, I thought, am I really a lesbian? I was scared and unsure about myself. Before I came out, I had to make sure that this was what I wanted for myself, that this is who I wanted to be. At first, I thought, maybe there's something psychologically wrong with me because I'm thinking this way and I'm feeling this way. Am I abnormal? I was a little insecure. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I had to work through it on my own. I asked myself, well, what's wrong with liking the same sex? Is it sinful? Why does society view it as something so bad, so taboo? Love is love, and whoever you feel you love, express it. That's okay. It's not like I'm a crook or a robber or doing harmful things to people. I'm just trying to be who I am. I'm just trying to give the love that I have to someone who happens to be the same sex as me. I didn't see anything wrong with that. I started questioning a lot of things about society, especially social roles.
We now move on to book number 9. This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson is a best-selling nonfiction book on sexuality and gender. There's a long-running joke that after coming out, a lesbian, gay guy, bisexual, or trans person should receive a membership card and an instruction manual, and this book claims to be that manual. This Book is Gay has been banned, challenged, relocated, and restricted for providing sexual education and LGBTQIA+ content.
When first faced with same-sex sex thoughts or sex thoughts about your gender, your first reaction may well be, oh shit. After all, society, films, television, newspapers, film have all told you your whole life that straight equals normal and not straight equals not normal. You have suddenly identified a sex thought that is different. And most people don't like different. Therefore, you're slapped with the not normal label.
Don't panic. Just because LGBTQ+ people are in a minority, it doesn't mean they're not normal. People with blue eyes are in the minority too, but we don't think of them as abnormal, do we? We don't look at Jake Gyllenhaal and say, look at that massive blue-eyed freak. No, we only look at him and weep that we cannot have him. Anyway, who gets to decide what's normal and what isn't? What a horrid, excluding word that is.
Stereotypes are poo. Every LGBTQ+ person is completely unique and individual. There are infinite ways of being gay, and they're all brilliant. So saying things like, all gay men dress well is unhelpful and dehumanizing to the gay men who don't give a flying fig about fashion.
One of the strangest stereotypes is that gay men hate lesbians and vice versa. I'm going to save you some time. If you're chatting to gay men who are dismissive of lesbians, or for that matter, dismissive of the vagina as a concept, you're talking to misogynist dicks. If you're talking to a gay woman who classifies all gay men as lesbian haters, you're talking to a sexist homophobe. It works both ways. Needless to say, gay people often show a startling lack of awareness about trans people. There's no reason for these conflicts, beyond trashy, worn, flea-bitten, drag show stand-up jokes that should have been thrown out with crimpers and Tamagotchis.
Stereotypes are useless for one very simple reason. They dehumanize people and allow terrible prejudices and discrimination to come creeping in. Bigots thrive on stereotypes. As well as being awesome, LGBTQ+ people are also a persecuted minority. I'm afraid it is not all cocktail parties and gay cruises. For many people around the world, being gay or trans is illegal. Again, there is so much homophobia in the world. Why on earth would we want to add to it?
Your identity is not a definition. You're joining an amazing global club filled with awesome people, but you're also you. And you are so much more than just a lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, or trans person. You need to imagine yourself as something with lots of parts. Perhaps a heart or a squid. You're basically a harp squid, and one of your tentacles or strings is being a lesbian or gay, etc., but you have many more parts.
You are a complex, multifaceted person. Some of your tentacles will affect your life more than others, and frankly, some are a little weightier than others. As well as being gay, you may also be Asian, disabled, and a tap dancer. In this instance, tap dancing, although fancy, may not define you as much as the other three. This is called intersectionality, the study of how much these overlapping identities will influence your life.
Of course, your love life is a deservedly big slice of your life pie. But if you shove the homo bit to one side, you're in the same dating pool as everyone else. We're all having the same heartaches, first loves, dumpings, why haven't they returned my text moments, bad dates, and great kisses. I like to think that before long, you'll introduce yourself as a dancer, a fan, a friend, a writer, or a personal trainer before, I'm Bob, I'm gay. Straight people don't have to do this, and neither should we. Be proud. You have lots of different hats. And that brings us to book number 8, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. It tells the story of a young African-American girl named Pecola who grew up following the Great Depression and is consistently regarded as ugly due to her mannerisms and dark skin. The Bluest Eye has been challenged for many reasons since its publication in 1970, and in 2021 it was banned and challenged because it depicts child sexual abuse and was considered sexually explicit.
Pretty eyes, pretty blue eyes, big, blue, pretty eyes. Run, Jip, run. Jip runs. Alice runs. Alice has blue eyes. Jerry has blue eyes. Jerry runs. Alice runs. They run with their blue eyes. 4 blue eyes. 4 pretty blue eyes. Each night, without fail, she prayed for blue eyes. Fervently for a year she had prayed. Although somewhat discouraged, she was not without hope. To have something as wonderful as that happen would take a long time. She walks down Garden Avenue to a small grocery store which sells penny candy. 3 pennies are in her shoe, slipping back and forth between the sock and the inner sole. With each step, she feels the painful press of the coins against her foot. There is plenty of time to consider what to buy. Now, however, she moves down an avenue gently buffeted by the familiar and therefore loved images. The dandelions at the base of the telephone pole. Why, she wonders, do people call them weeds? She thought they were pretty. There was the sidewalk, crack-shaped like a Y, and the other one that lifted the concrete up from the dirt floor. Frequently, her slopping step had made her trip over that one. These and other inanimate objects, things she saw and experienced, they were real to her. She knew them. They were the codes and the touchstones of the world capable of translation and possession. She climbs 4 wooden steps to the door of Jakubowski's fresh veg meat and sundry store. A bell tinkles as she opens it. Standing before the counter, she looks at the array of candies. All Mary Jane's, she decides, 3 for a penny. A peal of anticipation unsettles her stomach. She pulls off her shoe and takes out the 3 pennies. The gray head of Mr. Jakubowski looms up over the counter. He urges his eyes out of his thoughts to encounter her. Blue eyes, blear dropped. Slowly, he looks towards her. His eyes draw back, hesitate, and hover. At some fixed point in time and space, he senses that he need not waste the effort of a glance. He does not see her, because for him, there is nothing to see. How can a 52-year-old white immigrant storekeeper with the taste of potatoes and beer in his mouth see a little black girl? Nothing in his life even suggested that the feat was possible, not to say desirable or necessary.
No.
She looks up at him and sees the vacuum where curiosity ought to lodge. She does not know what keeps his glance suspended. Perhaps because he is grown, or a man, and she is a little girl. But she has seen interest, disgust, even anger in grown men and grown male eyes. Yet this vacuum is not new to her. It has an edge. Somewhere in the bottom lid is the distaste. She has seen it lurking in the eyes of all white people. So the distaste must be for her blackness. All things in her are flux and anticipation, but her blackness is static and dread. And it is the blackness that accounts for, that creates the vacuum edged with distaste and white eyes. She points her finger at the Mary Janes. A little black shaft of finger, its tip pressed on the display window. The quietly inoffensive assertion of a black child's attempt to communicate with a white adult. Then,
What, these?
she shakes her head, her fingertip fixed on the spot which, in her view, at any rate, identifies the Mary Janes. He cannot see her view. The angle of his vision, the slant of her finger, makes it incomprehensible to him. His lumpy red hand plops around in the glass casing like the agitated head of a chicken outraged by the loss of its body.
Right, can't you talk?
His fingers brush the Mary Janes. She nods.
Well, why didn't you say so? 1? How many?
Nicola unfolds her fist, showing the 3 pennies. He scoots 3 Mary Janes towards her. She holds the money toward him. He hesitates, not wanting to touch her hand. Finally, he reaches over and takes the 3 pennies from her hand. His nails graze her damp palm. Outside, Nicola feels the inexplicable shame ebb. Dandelion. A dart of affection leaps out from her to them, but they do not look at her and do not send love back. She thinks they are ugly. They are weeds. Preoccupied with that revelation, she trips on the sidewalk crack. Anger stirs and wakes in her. Anger is better. There is a sense of being in anger, a reality and presence, an awareness of worth. It is a lovely surging. Her thoughts fall back to Mr. Jakubowski's eyes, his phlegmy voice. The anger will not hold. The shame wells up again, its muddy rivulets seeping into her eyes. what to do before the tears come. She remembers the Mary Janes. Each pale yellow wrapper has a picture on it, a picture of little Mary Jane, for whom the candy is named. Smiling white face, blonde hair in gentle disarray, blue eyes looking at her out of a world of clean comfort. The eyes are petulant, mischievous. DePaul, they are simply pretty. She eats the candy, and its sweetness is good. To eat the candy is somehow to eat the eyes. Eat Mary Jane. Love Mary Jane. Be Mary Jane. 3 pennies had brought her 9 lovely orgasms with Mary Jane. Lovely Mary Jane, for whom a candy is named.
Number 7, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews is a 2015 New York Times best-selling novel that inspired a feature film of the same name. The book, told from the perspective of high school senior Greg Gaines, has been called the funniest book you'll ever read about death. Nonetheless, it has been banned and challenged because it was considered sexually explicit and degrading to women.
For the purposes of this god-awful book, I have to talk briefly about girls. So let's see if I can get through this without wanting to punch myself in the eyeball. First things first, girls like good-looking guys, and I am not very good-looking. In fact, I sort of look like a pudding. I am extremely pale and somewhat overweight. I have a kind of rat face, and my mediocre vision makes me squint a lot. Finally, I have what has been diagnosed as chronic allergic rhinitis, which sounds interesting, but basically just means a constant booger problem. I can't really breathe through my nose, so most of the time my mouth is hanging open, which gives the appearance of major stupidity. Second, girls like confident guys. It's hard to be confident when you look like a chubby, squinty, mentally defective rodent human who picks his nose. Third, my girl tactics need work. Failed girl tactic number 1, the non-crush. In 4th grade, I realized that girls were desirable. I had no idea what you were supposed to do with them, of course. I just kind of wanted to have one, like as a possession or something. And of all the 4th graders, Cammie Marshall was definitely the hottest. So I had Earl go up to Cammie Marshall on the playground and say,
Greg doesn't have a crush on you, but he's worried that you have a crush on him?
I was standing about 5 feet away when Earl did this. The hope was that Cammie would say,
Secretly, I totally have a crush on Greg and I want to be his girlfriend.
Instead, she said,
Who?
Greg Gaines? He's standing right over there.
They both turned to look at me. I took my finger out of my nose to wave. That was when I realized that I had had my finger up my nose.
Nope.
Things really did not improve from there. Failed girl tactic number 2, the non-stop insults. Cammie was obviously out of my league, but her best friend Madison Hartner was also pretty hot. With Madison, I used a tactic that I had seen work for other 5th grade girls and other 5th grade boys. Insults. Constant, vicious insults. Insults that didn't even make any sense. I called her Madison Avenue Hartner, not even knowing what Madison Avenue was. Badison, Fatison. It took me a while, but eventually I discovered Madison Fartner, which made some of the other kids giggle, so I used it all the time. The thing was, I was relentless. I went way too far. I told her that she had a tiny dinosaur brain and a second brain in her butt. I said her family didn't have dinner. They just sat around and farted at each other because they were too stupid to know what food was. At one point, I even called her house to tell her that she washed her hair with barf. Look, I was an idiot. I didn't want people to think that I had a crush, so I decided to give everyone the impression that I truly, honestly hated Madison Hartner for no reason. Just thinking about this really makes me want to punch myself in the eyeball. Failed girl tactic number 3, the diversion. In 6th grade, it was time to throw some game at Leah Katzenberg, so to win her over, get ready for record-setting stupidity, I decided that I would try to make her jealous, specifically by flirting with Rachel Kushner. The thing Rachel had going for her was that she thought I was the funniest guy in the entire world. I could make her laugh by doing literally anything. Impressions of teachers, going cross-eyed, the dance of the pigeon man. Look, this was awesome for my self-esteem. Unfortunately, it was not awesome for my chances with Leah Katzenberg, who rapidly came to think that Rachel and I were a cute couple. And one day after Hebrew school told us exactly that. Suddenly, I had a girlfriend, and it was not the girlfriend that I wanted. The next day, I informed Rachel over the phone that I wanted to be just friends.
That's fine.
Great.
Do you want to come over?
My foot is stuck in the toaster. It was idiotic, but needless to say, this got a huge laugh from her.
Seriously, though, do you want to come over?
I have to sort this toaster thing out first. Then, knowing that there was no going forward with that conversation, I hung up. The joke went on for days, then weeks, and eventually Rachel stopped thinking that this was so funny.
Greg, seriously, if you don't want to hang out, just tell me.
But I wasn't able to tell her for some reason. I would have felt too mean. The stupid part was that what I was doing was way more mean, but I didn't realize this at the time. Ow! I punched myself in the eyeball. So, where are they now? Cammie Marshall is now captain of the math league. She is definitely not the hottest girl in her class anymore, although I don't think this really bothers her all that much. Madison Hartner is smoking hot and probably dates one of the Pittsburgh Steelers or something. Leah Katzenberg has a shaved head, and 4 out of 5 English teachers have given up trying to make her read books written by men. Rachel Kushner got acute myelogenous leukemia our senior year.
Book number 6, The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, is about Junior, a budding cartoonist who lives on the Spokane Indian Reservation. Determined to receive a good education, Junior leaves the res to attend an all-white school in the neighboring farm town where the only other Indian is the school mascot. Consistently challenged since its publication in 2007 for acknowledging issues such as poverty, alcoholism, and sexuality, this National Book Award winner has most recently been challenged and banned for profanity, sexual references, and use of a derogatory term.
A warrior isn't afraid of confrontation. So I went to school and walked right up to Gordy, the genius. Gordy, I need to talk to you.
I don't have time. Mr. Orcutt and I have to debug some PCs. Don't you hate PCs? They're sickly and fragile and vulnerable to viruses. PCs are like French people living during the bubonic plague.
Wow. and I thought I was a freak.
I much prefer math, don't you? They're so poetic.
Computers are computers. One or the other, it's all the same.
So, Mr. Spirits, are you going to bore me with your tautologies all day, or are you actually going to say something?
Tautologies. What the heck are tautologies? I couldn't ask Gordy because then he'd know I was an illiterate Indian idiot.
You don't know what a tautology is, do you?
Yes, I do. Really, I do. Completely. I do.
You're lying.
No, I'm not lying.
Yes, you are.
How can you tell?
Because your eyes dilated, your breathing rate increased a bit, and you started to sweat.
Okay, so Gordy was a human lie detector machine too. All right, I lied. What is tautology?
A tautology is a repetition of the same sense in different words. It's a redundancy.
Oh, you mean redundant, like saying the same thing over and over but in different ways?
Yes.
Oh, so if I said something like, Gordy's a dick without ears and an ears without dick, then that would be tautology.
Well, that's not exactly a tautology, but it is funny. You have a singular wit.
Listen, Gordy, I know you're a genius and all, but you're one weird dude.
I'm quite aware of my differences. I wouldn't classify them as weird.
Don't get me wrong. I think weird is great. I mean, if you look at all the great people in history, Einstein, Michelangelo, Emily Dickinson, then you're looking at a bunch of weird people.
I'm going to be late for class. You're going to be late for class. Perhaps you should, as they say, cut to the chase, huh?
I want to be your friend.
Excuse me?
I want us to be friends?
I assure you I am not a homosexual.
Oh, no, I don't want to be friends that way. I just want, I meant regular friends. I mean, you and we have a lot in common. Gordy studied me now. I was an Indian kid from the reservation. I was lonely and sad and isolated and terrified, just like Gordy. And so we did become friends. Not the best of friends. We didn't share secrets or dreams. No, we studied together. Gordy taught me how to study. Best of all, he taught me how to read.
Listen, you have to read a book 3 times before you know it. The first time you read it for the story, the plot, the movement from scene to scene that gives the book its momentum, its rhythm. It's like riding a raft down the river. You're just paying attention to the currents. Do you understand that?
Not at all.
Yes, you do.
Okay, I do. I really didn't, but Gordy believed in me. He wouldn't let up on me.
The second time you read a book, you read it for its history, for its knowledge of history. You think about the meaning of each word and where that word came from. Who invented the word? Who first used it? And how has the meaning of the word changed since it was first used? You have to look all that up. If you don't treat each word that seriously, then you're not treating the novel seriously.
I suddenly understood that if every moment of a book should be taken seriously, then every moment of life should be taken seriously as well.
But don't take anything too seriously either. Huh? You read a book for the story, for each of its words, and yes, you draw your cartoons for the story, for each of its words and images. And yes, you do need to take that seriously, but you should also read and draw because really good books and really good cartoons give you a boner.
I was shocked.
You should get a boner. You have to get a boner. Come on.
We ran into the Reardon High School library.
Look at all these books.
There aren't that many.
There are 3,412 books here. I know that because I counted them.
Okay, now you're officially a freak.
Yes, it's a small library, a tiny one, but if you read one of these books a day, it would still take you almost 10 years to finish. The world, even the smallest parts of it, is filled with things you don't know.
Okay. So it's like each of these books is a mystery. Every book is a mystery. And if you read all the books ever written, it's like you've read one giant mystery. And no matter how much you learn, you just keep on learning. There's so much more to learn. You need to learn.
Yes. Now, doesn't that give you a boner?
I'm rock hard.
Well, I don't mean boner in the sexual sense. I don't think you should run through life with a real erect penis. But you should approach each book. You should approach life with the real possibility that you might get a metaphorical boner at any time.
A metaphorical boner? Oh, what the heck is a metaphorical boner?
Boner is funnier than that, you know? And it's joy, you know? I really mean joy.
Then why didn't you just say joy? You didn't have to say boner. Whenever I think about boners, I get boners.
Well, boners are funnier, and they're also more joyful.
Gordy and I laughed. He was an extremely weird dude, but he would always be the smartest person I'd ever known. And he certainly helped me through school. He not only tutored me and challenged me, but he made me realize that hard work, the act of finishing, of completing, of accomplishing a task, is joyous.
Book number 5, The Hate You Give, is a young adult novel by Angie Thomas. It follows events in the life of a black 16-year-old girl, Star Carter, who is drawn to activism after she witnesses the police shooting of a childhood friend. Despite winning multiple awards and being the most searched for book on Goodreads during its debut year, this YA novel has been banned and challenged for profanity, violence, and because it was thought to promote an anti-police message and indoctrination of a social agenda.
Kenya begged me to come to this party for weeks. I knew I'd be uncomfortable as hell, but every time I told Kenya no, she said I act like I'm too good for garden party. I got tired of hearing that shit, and I decided to prove her wrong. People glance over at me with, who's this chick standing against a wall by herself like an idiot? Look, I slip my hands into my pocket. As long as I play it cool and keep to myself, I should be fine. The ironic thing is, though, at Williamson, I don't have to play it cool. I'm cool by default because I'm one of the only black kids there. I have to earn coolness in Garden Heights. Funny how it works with white kids, though. It's dope to be black until it's hard to be black.
Star!
The sea of people parts for him like he's a brown-skinned Moses. Guys give him depth and girls crane their necks to look at him. He smiles at me, and his dimples ruin any G persona he has. Khalil is fine. No other way of putting it. I used to take baths with him. Not like that, but way back in the day when we would giggle because he had a wee-wee, and I had what his grandma called a wee-haw. I swear it wasn't perverted, though. He hugs me, smelling like soap and baby powder.
What's up, girl? Ain't seen you in a minute. And you don't text nobody, nothing. Where you been?
School and basketball team keep me busy, but I'm always at the store. You're the one nobody sees anymore. His dimples disappear. He wipes his nose like he always does before a line.
I've been busy.
Obviously. The brand new Jordans, the crisp white tee, the diamonds in his ears. When you grow up in Garden Heights, you know what busy really means. Fuck. I wish he wasn't that kind of busy, though. I don't know if I want to tear up or smack him. But the way Khalil looks at me with those hazel eyes makes it hard to be upset. How's your grandma and Cameron?
They all right. Grandma's sick, though. Doctor says she got cancer or whatever.
Damn. Sorry, Kate.
Yeah, she's taking chemo. She only worried about getting a wig, though. She'll be all right.
Is your mama helping with Cameron?
You know, Star always looking for the best in people. You know she ain't helping.
Hey, it was just a question. She came in the store the other day. She looks better.
But now, she claims she's trying to get clean, but the usual. She'll go clean for a few weeks, decide she wants one more hit, and go back at it. But like I said, I'm good, Cameron's good, Grandma's good. That's all that matters.
The music changes, and Drake raps from the speaker. I nod to the beat and rap along under my breath. Everybody on the dance floor yells out the "starting from the bottom, now we're here" part. Khalil is watching me. A smile tries to form on his lips, but he shakes his head.
Can't believe you still love whiny ass Drake.
Leave my husband alone.
Your corny husband? Baby, you my everything. You all I ever wanted.
I push him with my shoulder and he laughs, his drink splashing over the sides of his cup.
You know that's how he sounds.
I flip him off. He puckers his lips and makes a kissing sound. All these months apart and we falling back into normal like it's nothing. A commotion stirs in the middle of the dance floor. Voices argue louder than the music. Cuss words fly left and right. Pop! A shot rings out. I duck. Pop! A second shot. The crowd stampedes toward the door, which leads to more cussing and fighting since it's impossible for everybody to get out at once. Khalil grabs my hand.
Come on.
He pulls me through the crowd, shoving people out of our way and stepping on shoes. Cars speed away outside and people running through the night in any direction where shots aren't firing off. Khalil leads me to a Chevy Impala parked under a dim streetlight. We screech off, leaving chaos in the rearview mirror.
Always some shit. Can't have a party without somebody getting shot.
Khalil's Impala is nice. Not all flashy like some guy's cars. I pick at a crack in the seat. Who you think got shot?
Probably a King Lord. Some guard disciples came in when I got there. Something was bound to pop off.
I nod. Garden Heights has been a battlefield for the past 2 months over some stupid territory wars. Khalil cranks up his stereo, blasting an old rap song Daddy has played 1,000,000 times. Why are you always listening to that old stuff?
Man, get out of here. Tupac is the truth.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
No, even now. Like check this. Pac said Thug Life stood for the hate you give little infant fucks.
What?
Everybody's.
What?
Listen, the hate you, the letter U, give little infant fucks. Everybody. THUGLIFE. Thug life. Meaning what society gives us as use, it bites them in the ass when we get wild out. Get it?
Yeah. Yeah.
See? Told you he was relevant.
Now I'm wondering what he's going to do to fuck everybody. As much as I think I know, I hope I'm wrong. I need to hear it from him. So why have you really been busy?
Where do you want me to take you? Your house or to the store?
Lil,
Your house or the store?
you selling that stuff.
Mind your business, Star. Don't worry about me. Doing what I gotta do.
Bullshit. You know my dad will help you out.
I don't need no help from nobody, okay? And that little minimum wage job your pops gave me didn't make nothing happen. I got tired of choosing between lights and food.
I thought your grandma was working.
She was. When she got sick, them clowns at the hospital claimed when she got sick, them clowns at the hospital claimed they'd work with her. 2 months later, she wasn't pulling her load on the job because when you're going through chemo, you can't pull big ass garbage bins around. They fired her. Funny, huh? The hospital fired her because she was sick.
It's silent in the Impala, except for Tupac asking, who do you believe in? I don't know. A whoop whoop sound startles us, and blue lights flash in the rearview mirror.
We've now arrived at book number 4. Out of Darkness is a historical young adult novel by Ashley Hope Perez. The story chronicles a love affair between a teenage Mexican-American girl and a teenage African-American boy in 1930s New London, Texas, occurring right up to the 1937 New London school explosion. The novel deals with racism, classism, and segregation, and has recently been banned, challenged, and restricted for depictions of abuse and because it was considered to be sexually explicit.
The Explosion. Thursday, March 18th, 1937, 3:16 p.m. Wash drove his shovel into the flower bed and turned the soil. Fast, but not too fast. He had to be sure to earn out the hour. He liked working at the superintendent's place, liked being close to the school, liked how Mr. Crane always paid him fair. $1/4 an hour was a decent take, and he was saving for third-class train tickets to the Mexican border, the price of a new life with his girl. He'd ask for more hours tomorrow, but today the weather was too fine to waste. The sky rolled out bright as a bolt of blue fabric, the warm breeze combing back the last of the chill. It was weather for being in love, and Wash was in love. He counted the minutes until Mr. Crane would be done with his meeting and could pay him, and the minutes after that until his girl would be done with school and they could get to the tree and be together. He was thinking out his first touch for her. A kiss, one hand to her long, soft hair, the other to her waist, when a thundering roar filled his ears. The ground bucked. The trees above him lashed back and forth. Wash picked himself up and stumbled forward. When he rounded the corner of the house, he saw the walls and the roof of the school crumbled. He ran hard across the muddy schoolyard, through drifting clouds of thick black and gray and white dust that choked and blinded him. He found the side door of the school and stumbled into what was left of the main hallway. His arms went white with dust. Grit caked his tongue. The buildings around him groaned, but there was no other sound inside. The walls along the hall were blasted out, and what was left of the ceiling sloped at a dangerous angle. One brass light fixture dangled, bulbs shattered. He inched forward, boots crunching on broken tile. He was edging toward the blown-out wall of a classroom when he saw it. A black shoe with a worn strap and a red button. A shoe he knew.
Before, September 1936. Belly down on a thick branch, Naomi settled into the sway and creak of the tree. She closed her eyes and let her ears fill with wings beating air, and acorns falling onto the soft pad of pine needles. She tried not to think of the kids outside school in their neat circles. She listened to small things chewing through leaves and to a scurrying in the undergrowth. She breathed in the air and the scent of sap. She pressed her palms hard against the branch, felt all the little hurts of its years, and the way in which the bark had grown up tough and fierce over those hurts. When she opened her eyes, the world flooded in. Light, so much light falling down around her. Green and the shadow of green locked away in stem and bark. And none of it reminded her of the space in the world where her mother should have been, or of Henry who had taken her out of it.
Wash never got tired of the woods. There was the beauty of the place and also the pleasure of finding things. The woods had a way of grabbing bits out of pockets and scattering them for other people to come across. Also, there were the folks who let things fall and plain dumped them when they had no longer had use for them. So he wasn't surprised to see a black shoe lying on its side off the path. It looked to be a woman's shoe. He kicked through the dry pine needles and leaves, checking for its mate. Something moved in the branches above him. For a moment, a slim brown foot dangled through the leaves. A second later, he glimpsed a face. Dark eyebrows, enormous brown eyes, and a full, serious mouth. A kissable mouth. He'd never seen this girl. Since most of Wash's friends were picking today, he might as well be the first to meet this new girl, and he meant to make the most of it. Your shoe, miss? He smiled up into the tree.
It fell, she said from inside the green. Her voice was soft but clear.
I'm not sure if I can reach it up. Should I chuck it? Wash made a motion as if to throw the shoe.
Better not.
All right, then. I'd be happy to help you down so you can get it. Most girls laughed up the gentleman bit. When she didn't answer, Wash said, "Do you always spend your mornings in the trees?" Still no response. He took a few steps back to see if he could get a better look at her. "You still up there?" he called. The breeze rustled through the trees. "Not so much of a talker, huh?"
My grandfather says I could outquiet a stump.
"My mama says I could get a stone to tell its secrets." Listen, it's hard to converse like this. Why don't you come down from there? You're new to town, right? I can show you around. Be my pleasure.
No, thank you.
He wasn't going to get her down. Wash tossed the shoe between his hands. "If I can't get you down, I'll leave you to your thinking. I'm Wash, by the way. Wash Fuller. What'd you say your name was?"
Naomi.
He thought he could see those pretty lips moving, but he couldn't be sure. He poked around in the underbush until he found a long, sturdy stick. He balanced a shoe on the end and raised it up to the branch. A hand reached down. For a second, Wash saw the face again. Also smooth arms and a long, dark braid hanging down over one shoulder.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you. And your shoe, Miss Naomi." He lifted his hat to the tree. The only answer was the swishing of the leaves.
Book number 3, All Boys Aren't Blue, is a series of personal essays by prominent journalist and LGBTQIA+ activist George M. Johnson. In the book, Johnson explores his childhood, adolescence, and college years in New Jersey and Virginia and weaves together the trials and triumphs faced by Black queer boys. This New York Times bestseller has been banned and challenged for LGBTQIA+ content, profanity, and because it was considered to be sexually explicit.
I'm writing this book. I want to be as authentic and truthful about my experience as possible. I wanted my story to be in totality, the good, the bad, and the things I was always too afraid to talk about publicly. This meant going to places discussing some subjects that are often kept away from teens for fear of being too heavy. But the truth of the matter is, these things happened to me when I was a child, a teenager, and a young adult. So as heavy as these subjects may be, it is necessary that they are not only told, but also read by teens who may have to navigate many of these same expectations in their own lives. This book will touch on sexual assault, including molestation, loss of virginity, homophobia, racism, and anti-Blackness. These discussions at times may be a bit graphic, but nonetheless, they are experiences that many reading this book will encounter or have already encountered. And I want those readers to be seen and heard in these pages. Within these pages, the word nigger or nigga appears, sometimes in full or sometimes abbreviated as N******. The same is true for fag or faggot and their abbreviations. I included these slurs in the text in specific ways for specific emotional and intellectual effect. Please use the same thoughtfulness when talking about this book. If you don't identify as Black, African American, or queer, don't use these slurs in full, which can be harmful to others. You can use common abbreviations like N-word or F-word instead. Please know that this book was crafted with care and love, but most importantly, to give a voice to so many from marginalized communities whose experiences have not yet been captured between pages of this book, or any book. The story of how I entered the world was a foreshadowing. When my aunt first saw my head full of beautiful, jet black hair, curly hair crown from my mother's womb, she ran into the hospital's hallway where my family waited.
It's a girl! It's a girl!
She yelled this to my grandmother's excitement and to my father's slight disappointment. But by the time my aunt got back to the delivery room and I had been fully born, she realized her quick assumption would soon need correcting.
Actually, it's a boy.
And it's a girl. No, it's a boy mixed up, and it's funny on paper, but not quite as hilarious in real life, especially when the star of that story struggles with identity. Gender is one of the biggest projections placed onto children at birth, despite families having no idea how the baby will truly turn out. When our gender is assigned at birth, we are also assigned responsibilities to grow and maneuver through life based on the simple checking off of boxes. Male, female, black, white, straight, gay. Kids who don't fit the perfect boxes are often left asking themselves what the truth is. Am I a girl? Am I a boy? Am I both? Am I neither? As a child, I struggled mightily with these questions. Now, as an adult, I have a much better grasp of sexuality, gender, and the way society pressures us to conform to what has been the norm. This book is an exploration of two of my identities, Black and queer, and how I became aware of their intersectionalities within myself and in society. How I've learned that neither of these identities can be contained within a simple box, and that I enter the room as both of them, despite the spaces and environments I must navigate. I want the words of my life story to be immortalized. I want to immortalize this narrative of joy and pain, this narrative of triumph and tragedy, this narrative of a Black queer experience that has been erased from the history books. An existence that has been here forever. I've never thought about immortality before. I always assumed that my mortality would be linked to my inability to survive as a Black queer person. I have the deaths of so many people like me, from the HIV pandemic to domestic violence to suicide. I watch people like me who don't survive the oppression. They become today's news and yesterday's headlines. I remember being nervous about writing a book like this. I wasn't sure if this was my story to tell. In writing this, though, I realized that I wasn't just telling my story. I was telling the story of millions of queer people who never got a chance to tell theirs. Toni Morrison states in my favorite quote of all time, if there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. This is the story of George Matthew Johnson. This is a story for all of us.
Book number 2, Lawn Boy, is a semi-autobiographical coming-of-age novel written by Jonathan Evison and published in 2018. It tells the story of Mike Munoz, who's a Mexican-American young adult who has faced hardship ever since his childhood and is now going through a phase of self-discovery. This Alex Award-winning novel has been banned and challenged for, you guessed it, LGBTQ+ LGBTQIA plus content and because it was considered to be sexually explicit.
I had good reason to be a nervous kid. Many years ago, we lost our house on the res when the landlord jacked our rent without warning. We kept what we could carry and left behind the rest of our worldly possessions, which didn't really amount to much beyond some tired furniture. For nearly a month, Nate, Mom, and I lived in our 1987 monkey shit brown Astro van, eating cold SpaghettiOs out of the can, reading by flashlight through the fog of our own breath, and showering weekly at the state park. I wish I could tell you it was an adventure, at least for the first few days, but it wasn't. The experience was terrifying from the start. We parked on the streets most nights under the sodium glare of a street lamp, if we were lucky, where the shadows played tricks on my uneasy imagination as I lie awake. Other nights we parked at the end of a dirt road where I was equally terrorized by the crunch of footsteps over gravel and the clashing of limbs in the wind somewhere in the darkness. Invariably, we awoke damp and chilled to the bone, still wearing our clothes. Weekends were the worst because there was no school. School was warm and dry, and a green ticket meant a free hot lunch. Thank God the library was open on Saturday and that there was church on Sundays, so we got some relief. Let's just say I've never been much of a camper. Been there, done that. Eventually, we moved in with my diabetic Aunt Jeannie in South Kingston, a situation that was less than ideal since Aunt Jeannie lived in a single wide trailer in a motor court with strict guest regulations. Not to mention that she and my mom never got along. The first thing Aunt Jeannie said when we showed up on her doorsteps with our damp blankets and dirty laundry was, "This is what you get for marrying a Mexican." At the time, I thought she was talking about Nate and me. The three of us slept in the living room, Mom on the floor, Nate and I on a fold-out couch. After nearly 2 months of this, my mom picked up a second job at the elementary school. By that time, Aunt Jeannie was so anxious to get rid of us that she lent my mom half the money for a new rental on the res. And no, in case you were wondering, you do not have to be an Indian to live on the res. Apparently, all you need is a bunch of broken shit on your yard. We managed to stay afloat for 1.5 years at that place until the landlord jacked the price, and my mom was forced to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, or we might have been back at Aunt Jeannie's again. That didn't last either. It was simply too hard for my mom to support us, even with 2 jobs. That's probably where stepdads 1 and 2 came in, at least in theory. Stepdad 1 was Chuck, who was about 5'2" and carried a comb in his pocket right where his wallet should have been. Stepdad 2 is Ronnie, a guy who liked to pump a little iron and go crabbing, until he married my mom, that is, after which point he simply enjoyed being a fat fuck and sitting in a chair. Look, I'm not making excuses here, but I have come to believe that to a large degree we are products of our environment. So I suppose it's no small wonder that expectations for Mike Munoz have always been low. But mark my words, somehow, some way, I am going to change all of that. Old Mike Munoz fully intends on going out and getting his one of these days. Just in case I seem like another disgruntled wage slave, don't get the idea that I don't actually like landscaping. Look, maybe it doesn't pay a fortune, but I'm outside in the fresh air for 8 hours a day seeing the immediate results of my labor. There is a lot of satisfaction in that. I mean, think about it. Why else would all these old fogies who retire do nothing but work in their gardens all day long? I'm not going to go ahead and get all nuanced about the art of landscaping or start in with any of that navel-gazing philosophical crap like they do in books. It's not a metaphor for the human condition. It's a fucking yard. Just know that I am a guy who enjoys maintaining them, generally speaking. And yeah, maybe I'll write the great American landscaping novel one of these days, but in the meantime, Tuesdays are a bitch. All our Tuesday accounts are located across the Adjate Passage on Bainbridge. We call the bridge the service entrance because virtually nobody on the island, as far as I can tell, mows their own lawn, or maintains their own pool, or cleans their own gutters. They seem happy and healthy, if not a little bored. They all appear harmless enough on the surface, except that most of them don't seem to realize how good they've got it, or how people less fortunate than themselves have helped account for their good fortune, have even suffered, so that they can enjoy their wealth and security. But like I said, one day I am going to get mine. Probably won't be a Tuesday, though.
Finally, book number 1, Genderqueer. Genderqueer is a 2019 graphic memoir by Maya Kababy. It recounts Kababy's journey from adolescence to adulthood and the author's exploration of gender identity and sexuality, ultimately identifying as being outside of the gendered binary. Genderqueer, a memoir, was the most frequently challenged book of 2021, having been banned and challenged and restricted for LGBTQIA+ content, and because it was considered to have sexually explicit images.
There's a photo of me at about age 4, posing with a kitten, unaware or uncaring that my mermaid undies were also on display. By first grade, I had switched from girl underwear to soft cotton shorts. My mom called these bike shorts and bought them for me without comment. When I started my period, I quickly realized that pads and shorts were not compatible. Looking at the women's underwear options at the store, I asked myself, which six-pack do I hate the least? Reluctantly, I returned to the girls section. I bought essentially the exact same ones for 15 years. I'd pull out the inevitable pink and purple pairs and give them to my sister, Phoebe, keeping only the dark, neutral colors for myself. Where are you, Hanes Cotton Bikini Cut six-pack? It's not here. Phoebe? Phoebe!
What?
They don't have any of my plain underwear. Everything has lace on it. What do I do? Help me.
Do you want to look in the boys section?
Yes? Is that an option? Will anything fit me? We went to the boys section. These have dinosaurs. These have spaceships. Wow, these have comics on them. Will they fit me? Will I be comfortable?
We'll rip open the pack in the dressing room, and you can try them on over your other underwear, okay? So, how do you feel?
They feel good. Oh, they feel great. When I got home, it seemed like a small miracle. 6 pairs of underwear in a pack, and not one of them was pink. Why did I waste so many years buying underwear that I hated? I could have been wearing cute, nerdy briefs the whole time. Some years later, like many before me, I poured all of my feelings into writing fan fiction. In my story, all the One Direction boys are lusting after each other and it is destroying their friendship. But when the time came to give my angsty characters a break and finally let them make out, I ran into a small problem. I don't know how to write about kissing. I need to make out with someone. For research. I have a very strict policy of never making out with my friends, so it will have to be a stranger. Where do I find a stranger who will make out with me? Tinder? I'll ask Phoebe about it.
Dude, just upgrade your phone. I'm sure it's been more than 2 years.
I have never upgraded.
You are still using your first phone? How old is it? 5 years?
Only 4.
I'm taking you to the Verizon store tomorrow.
Will you also set me up a Tinder profile? I need to make out with someone soon for the fan fiction.
OMG, yes!
My very brief Tinder journey. I matched with 6 women. I sent all of them a first message. 4 of them responded. 2 of those responses developed into conversations. I asked if they wanted to meet in person, and they both said yes. So I picked a time to meet candidate Y. She had come off as shy in our messages. I tried to get a good sense of her hobbies, her interests, and aspirations, but she seemed hesitant to reveal them.
Candidate Y arrived 30 minutes late.
I waited because it was my first ever date. It soon became clear that every activity in her life revolved around alcohol.
Her dream was to get her bartending license. Her hobby was drinking to blackout multiple times a week. The reason she was late was that she totaled her car the night before, so she had to walk to the coffee shop.
Within 45 minutes, it seemed clear that we had nothing in common, which didn't stop her from asking if I wanted to go back to her place.
Maybe she just wanted a ride back to her apartment.
But I said no. Since that date constituted 100% of my dating experience, I was a little more than nervous for my meeting with candidate Z. I needn't have been.
She was amazing.
We talked for nearly 3 hours.
She'd been married and divorced, loved reptiles and books, had recently gone back to school to finish her degree, and her day job was working at a sex toy shop.
You are so much cuter than your pictures showed.
I was thinking that too, but thank you for saying it first.
As I drove home, I remember thinking, forget research. I want to make out with her for myself. We planned a second date. And a note to my parents. Though I have struggled with being your daughter, I am so, so glad that I am your child.
That's it. Those are the top 10 most frequently challenged books of 2020. Thank you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and dismiss our actors. I know some folks have gigs to get to. If you want to see, you can. We usually do a little Q&A or discussion after this, so we can open it up if anybody has questions. Or I don't know, there's some.
You're not on Zoom, yeah?
How'd you guys get into acting? I am not an actor. I actually studied directing and stage management, but I've been helping out with our friend Katie, who's been running this program for 17 years. I've been assisting her, and yeah.
I'm the fourth child of 6, so I just needed attention.
I'm an only child, so I got to be on the end of that spectrum. I also need attention all the time.
What about you, Steve?
I used to act in high school and college, and I quit and got married and had kids. One of my daughters was right there. But 3 years ago, I'm like, hey, my kids are grown. I should get back into acting, but this time professionally. So that's what I've been doing. So that's it's been fun.
I just started doing improv in high school. I took a public speaking class, and one of the sections was improvisation, public speaking improv. And then the woman who taught, Miss Matnich, she taught the class. She invited me to do improv after school. So it just kind of naturally went from improv to Shakespeare to musicals to in front of you right now.
It's very natural. All actors should take improv. Really should. Shakespeare should.
Yes.
I'm just curious if when you were going through your schooling and kind of education, if you ever experienced kind of books being challenged on your curriculum or anything like that.
I have a fun story that's kind of more recent. So I grew up in Antioch, which is on the border of Wisconsin and has 2 stoplights. And I think I was the first gay kid in my entire high school. And we had a pretty rough time. Like my girlfriend and I would get the shit kicked out of us and had, our superintendent wouldn't allow us to have a GSA at my high school because he was an asshole. But it's a small town. And literally just a couple of months ago, I get a text from my mom and it's like, I'm going to the school board meeting tonight. And I was like, you haven't had a kid in school in over a decade. Why? And she was like, well, they're trying to ban a book and it's called Genderqueer. And I got it from my library, and I don't think they should ban it. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to talk at the school board meeting and tell them not to do it. And I was like, all right, like, sick, thank you, Mom. And because my mom's pretty chill, like, she's pretty awesome. But, like, when I first came out as, like, non-binary, my parents were like, what is this thing? And she's like, well, I read this book, and I understand everything now, and this book's important, and I'm going to go up there, and I'm going to tell them. And she calls me after the meeting, and she's just like, Megan, I did not have to say anything. So many people showed up from the community in support of the book that there wasn't enough time for everyone to talk about it. And they ended up not banning the book and, like, releasing a whole thing, and the school board unanimously voted to keep it. And it's just, like, one of those, like, I literally never thought I would see the day where that town was like, yeah, let's keep the gay book on the shelf. Like, it just completely blew my mind. So that's my favorite story about these books this year, at least. I don't know if any of you have dealt with any direct censorship stuff. I know we, one of the fun things about doing this for so many years, and Corey, how, you've been doing it for 12?
I've been doing it for 15 years. I took 1 year off in 2009 because, ironically enough, I was working on a show with Brandon. This is my 14th year overall doing this.
And it's interesting to see what books kind of pop up on the list. We always joke that, like, you can really track what's going on in the country kind of by looking at what the book trends are of what's being banned the most. But we also see the same ones pop up a lot. Like Bluest Eye has been on and off the list forever. We see things like To Kill a Mockingbird has popped up on there several times in the last decade. But then you also get, you know, new books like Genderqueer and This Book is Gay on there. Yeah. Anyone else have a story? You guys can share a story too if you've got a good censorship story. I don't know how long we have the room for, but.
Do you guys have a favorite banned book? Like, just in general, like, this one's my favorite?
This is my first year with the program. So I guess I could only pick from the 10 that we just read from. This is the first, so I'll give me a minute to think about it.
And I'll talk in the meantime. Yeah, The Catcher in the Rye is one that's been on a lot. That was one I read in high school at a very specific point in my life that I connected with and did not want to reread. I was afraid to reread it because I heard all those things about, you know, yes, that he is kind of a whiny character, and you'll look back at yourself and see yourself in that and realize that maybe you're a bit whiny too. And I did realize all that, but I still very much enjoyed the book as a work of literature.
Okay, so I remember, I'm a little tiny bit older than them, but I remember when I was in 6th grade, this book had been banned, but it was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And we thought, oh my God, this book is shocking. And we were just passing it all around. I went to a private school, so it was like, oh my God, what are you reading? But it was like, so I guess it wasn't necessarily banned at that time, but it was
it's definitely
very
been on the
taboo.
list.
Yeah, so we were sneaking around, and we knew it was probably going to be banned. We were sneaking around the classroom and taking turns reading it, and we're like, oh my God, you read this book? It's so shocking. I think it kind of was. It was, Judy Blume she was a little ahead of her time. That's what I remember.
I'm just gonna pick it. I think all these books are probably fantastic, especially just the excerpts that we've read to all of you. But I'm gonna pick Earl and the Dying Girl only because I saw the movie before it hit the list. So when I realized it was on the list, I was actually shocked. But then I thought to myself, well, this is the society we live in right now, so why am I shocked? So yeah, that would be my favorite. It translated really well from book to movie and vice versa.
These are my favorites, Genderqueer. It kind of knocked me out of the park. I highly recommend it. It's a graphic novel, so it's a quick read. But just like reading sections of it was like, oh, someone wrote my life story into a comic book. That's crazy. And like so many things about it, I was like, oh, I just thought this was like a me thing, but actually it's not. I've never in my life seen like the story of a non-binary person shared in such a personal way, and it was amazing to me like how many similarities I saw between like my experience and friends' experiences. So I was like a weeping mess during that book. but it's really, really, really wonderful. I feel like I have a different favorite one every year though, so it's a good way to get your reading list up.
If you want to read any of the books on the list this year in their entirety, they're all available at the library. So lots of books that are historically shown up on the list. So.
And if you guys are curious about the list too, the American Library Association has all of them on their website, which I think is just ala.org. And yeah, they have all of the historic lists and details about why books have been challenged. It's been 1 year Twilight was on there even. So one
Vampire.
yeah, 1 year there were like a bunch of vampire books.
Harry Potter goes up back. Hunger Games has been on there a whole bunch too.
The version. Yeah. The Bible. Bible's been on there a couple times. The last couple of years.
How did you choose the excerpts for performance? Are they straight through, or did you kind of like pick things out of?
It's kind of both. So Katie, who's our program manager, who's not here today, does a lot of them, and then I did a couple of them with her this year for This Book is Gay and Genderqueer, because those are 2 new ones. So I think for a lot of them, she goes and just kind of finds like, this is my favorite chunk, or this will make like a good performance, or this part, really emphasizes the reasons this book shouldn't be banned, maybe. And puts those together, and then we kind of cut it down. So, like with This Book is Gay, it's more kind of like they said, like an instruction manual almost. So it's like, here's what's going to happen in your life. So I took chunks from all over that book that all had to do with similar topics and put them together for our piece. And then we figured out like, okay, how can we divide it so it's more of a conversation? I know with some of the other ones, Katie's had to trim a lot of stuff down because otherwise we would be reading at you for several hours. But we usually do like a couple edits with just us going over it and seeing like, does it make sense this way? What can we keep in? What could go without affecting the text? And then usually we do like a rehearsal or something. We didn't have one this year, so after our first reading, we were like, it's still too long. We made some cuts on Tuesday morning to trim it down a little bit, but yeah, they're usually one chunk of the text that we consolidate, but in certain cases, like This Book is Gay and in Genderqueer, because each one's only like a 2-page vignette, so we kind of combined a couple different. Yeah.
What was the passage you chose to read from the Bible? Was on the list there? Or was it
I know at least 1 year it was like one of Jesus's ones that's like, love everybody.
Exactly.
That you want to be loved and like treat your neighbors with compassion and stuff. So,
I mean, Katie will generally, when she puts these together, I mean, will generally lead towards more artistic merit, or I mean, often if there is something, just about like taking care of each other, or if there's like a passage like actually about like reading, often she'll like take that and she'll adapt that. So, but it's not like she's always necessarily trying to find the most shocking part or the part that's going to highlight why it's banned. It's just,
we more try to highlight why it shouldn't be banned than why it is banned. Or why the banning is...
Why they want to ban it and why it's done.
Why perhaps this is a silly reason to ban it. Anybody else? All right, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time out on. And any of you who are theater people, City Lit's down off the Red Line on Bryn Mawr. They do their whole thing is literary theater and doing adaptations of literary works. So you'll see a lot of books adapted into plays. You've done 3 there? Yeah, I've been stage managing there since I was like 19, so I've done a lot of them. But we do some cool stuff, and if you're a writer, every year we do an Art of Adaptation Festival. So we take 5 to 10 minute scripts that are adaptations of a non-dramatic work, and we pick the best ones, and then we do a production of them, and we have like a panel of awards and judges.
Citylit.org. Check it out. It's fun.
I have no idea what the schedule is this year.
It's usually sometime in June, I feel.
Yeah, it's usually in June. I like to prep people so they have time to like.
Absolutely, yeah. You can adapt it to
Admissions
your
open in like March, so.
people like adapt video games and
Yeah,
stuff.
we
It's
had
really-
a video game. We had someone adapt a painting. We've had some fun stuff. It's pretty neat. So. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us.